It is night in a garden outside Jerusalem. An armed crowd has arrived, soldiers, officials from the chief priests and Pharisees, carrying torches and lanterns and weapons. They have been guided here by one of the 12 disciples. They know this garden. Jesus comes here regularly with his disciples. That is the intelligence that makes the arrest possible. They find him. He steps forward to meet them, not backing away, not attempting to hide, not waiting to be identified. He asks, "Who is it you want?" They say, "Jesus of Nazareth." He says, "I am he." And the entire arresting party, the soldiers, the officials, the armed crowd, draws back and falls to the ground. They are not overcome by superior force. No one has struck them. No angels descend. No earthquake splits the ground. Jesus speaks 2 words in Greek, eimi, I am. And the people who came to arrest him fall down. They get up. Jesus asks again, "Who is it you want?" They say, "Jesus of Nazareth." He says, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." He negotiates the release of his disciples as the condition of his own surrender. And then he is arrested. The power that could have prevented everything is demonstrably present in Gethsemane. The arrest party has experienced it. Jesus has demonstrated it. And he gives himself over anyway, not because the power has run out, not because the hour has finally caught him, because he has chosen this. Because as he will say to Pilate hours later, "No one takes my life from me. I lay it down of my own accord." Before we follow the attempts on Jesus' life from the beginning, from the night in Bethlehem when an angel woke Joseph in a dream and told him to run, I want to plant something in your mind. The arrest party falls in Gethsemane when Jesus says, "I am." The power that has been allowing him to escape every previous attempt is still fully present in the final one. He could walk away. He could walk through this crowd the way he walked through the crowd at Nazareth. He could hide himself the way he hid himself in the temple. He could escape their grasp the way he escaped it in the portico of Solomon. He has done all of these things. He knows how to do them. He does not do them this time. We will come back to that choice, to why Gethsemane is different from every previous escape, but not yet. Because understanding the surrender requires understanding every escape that came before it. And the escapes are not accidents. They are not narrow misses or good fortune or unexplained providence. They are deliberate, governed by a phrase that John uses to explain every escape until the one where the phrase changes. His hour had not yet come. This is not a study of Roman political violence in first century Palestine. This is not a chronology of opposition to Jesus, organized by which religious group opposed him when and why. This is not a series of close calls that Jesus survived by good fortune or divine intervention in the dramatic sense. This is a close reading of every attempt on Jesus' life, paying attention to the pattern of the escapes, the phrase that marks them, in the specific moment when the phrase changes and Jesus stops escaping. Because here's what becomes visible when you read every attempt together. Jesus is not a victim who eventually runs out of luck. He is the one walking toward Jerusalem with his face set like flint, knowing what is there, arriving at the appointed time. The timing of his death is not determined by his enemies. It is determined by him. We start before he can walk or talk, with a king who is afraid of an infant. Herod the Great is afraid. The Magi from the east have arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the one who has been born king of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." And Herod, who is already king of the Jews, who has been king of the Jews for decades, who has built the most magnificent temple in the ancient world and eliminated every potential rival he could identify, including members of his own family, is disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him, Matthew says. The question the Magi are asking is the question Herod has spent his entire reign trying to prevent anyone from answering. He summons the chief priests and teachers of the law. He asks where the Messiah is to be born. They tell him, in Bethlehem of Judea. He meets secretly with the Magi. He asks precisely when the star appeared. He says, "Go and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." He has no intention of worshiping. He has every intention of killing. The Magi find the child. They worship. They present their gifts. And they are warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. They go home by another route. An angel appears to Joseph in a dream. "Get up, take the child and his mother, and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." Joseph gets up during the night, not in the morning, not after deliberation or consultation. He gets up during the night, takes Mary and the infant Jesus, and leaves for Egypt. The departure is immediate, the same immediacy we see in the disciples dropping their nets, the same euthus that Mark uses for miraculous action. There is no time to waste, and Joseph does not waste it. Herod waits for the Magi to return. They do not return, and he realizes he has been outwitted, and he is furious. And he gives orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who are 2 years old and under, based on the time he had learned from the Magi. Matthew quotes Jeremiah, "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be consoled because they are no more." Pay attention to what this means. Other children die in the place of Jesus. The infant he is trying to kill escapes to Egypt. The children who could not escape, who were too young to be warned, whose fathers did not receive dreams, die. This is the first death associated with the life of Jesus, and it is the death of children who have no part in the story except proximity. They are 2 years old and under. They live in Bethlehem. That is their only offense. Matthew does not explain why God warned Joseph and did not warn the other parents. He simply records what happened, the escape, the massacre, the mourning, and places Jeremiah's text over it, Rachel weeping for her children. The grief is real and is recorded and is not explained away. Herod dies. An angel tells Joseph in Egypt that those who wanted to kill the child are dead. Joseph returns with Mary and Jesus. They settle in Nazareth in Galilee, not Bethlehem, because Archelaus is now ruling Judea in his father Herod's place, and Joseph is afraid of him. The first escape produces a displacement. Jesus grows up not in the city of David, but in a backwater Massacre town in Galilee that will become both his home and the site of the second attempt on his life. Now watch what happens 30 years later when he returns to the town where he was raised. Luke chapter 4. Jesus has been baptized and tested in the wilderness. He returns to Galilee in the power of the Spirit. He teaches in synagogues and everyone praises him. He comes to Nazareth, where he has been brought up, Luke says, placing him back in the hometown he left decades before. On the Sabbath, he goes into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stands up to read. He is given the scroll of Isaiah. He finds the place. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. And he reads it and sits down. He says, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." The people speak well of him. They are amazed at the gracious words coming from his lips. They say, "Isn't this Joseph's son?" They know him. This is the carpenter's boy. This is the child who grew up in these streets. And then Jesus says something that changes everything in the room. He tells them that no prophet is accepted in his hometown. He tells them that in Elijah's time, when the sky was shut for 3.5 years and there was a severe famine throughout the land, Elijah was not sent to any widow in Israel, only to a widow in Zarephath in the region of Sidon. And that in Elisha's time there were many in Israel with leprosy. None of them was cleansed, only Naaman the Syrian. He is telling them that God's grace has always gone beyond Israel, that the prophets were sent to outsiders, that the hometown community does not have a special claim on the benefits of the kingdom just because they know who his father is. All the people in the synagogue are furious. They get up. They drive him out of the town. They take him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, the cliff edge, the place from which a body, thrown off, would not survive, in order to throw him off. And Luke writes one sentence, "But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way." That is all. No explanation, no description of how. Whether the crowd stepped aside, whether he became invisible, whether they simply could not lay hands on him. Luke records the intention and the result, and nothing in between. They intended to throw him off a cliff. He walked through them and went on his way. This is the first explicit escape in Jesus' ministry, and the phrase that explains it is absent from Luke's account, but it is present in John's account of the subsequent attempts. His hour had not yet come. Here's what most people miss about the Nazareth attempt. It comes from his own community, not from the Roman authorities, not from the religious establishment in Jerusalem, from the people who watched him grow up, from the men who attended synagogue with his father. The first people to try to kill Jesus are the people who know him best, and what triggers their fury is not a miracle or a claim to divinity, but the implication that God's grace is not limited to them. Now watch what happens when the attempts multiply in Jerusalem. John chapter 7. Jesus is teaching in the temple courts during the Feast of Tabernacles. The chief priests and Pharisees send guards to arrest him. Jesus continues teaching. The guards return without him. The chief priests and Pharisees say, "Why didn't you bring him?" The guards say, "No one ever spoke the way this man does." And John records they tried to seize him, but no one laid a hand on him, because his hour had not yet come. John chapter 8. Jesus says, "Before Abraham was born, I am," and they pick up stones to stone him. But Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. John chapter 10. Jesus says, "I and the Father are one." And again they pick up stones. Jesus says, "For which of these works are you stoning me?" They say, "We are not stoning you for any good work, but for blasphemy. But blasphemy because you, a mere man, claim to be God." They try to seize him. He escapes their grasp. Escapes their 3 attempts in quick succession. 3 times the response to something Jesus says is immediate physical violence. Stones reaching for hands, guards sent to arrest, crowds moving to seize. 3 times the same result. He escapes. And John's editorial comment makes the reason explicit: his hour had not yet come. The phrase is not explaining a supernatural protection or a miraculous evasion. It is explaining the logic of the entire narrative. There is an appointed time. The appointed time has not arrived. Until it arrives, no attempt will succeed, not because Jesus is untouchable, but because the timing of his death is not in his enemy's hands. It is in his. Stay with me. 4 attempts. An infant who escapes in the night while other children die. A grown man who walks through a murderous crowd without explanation. A teacher in the temple whom guards cannot arrest and crowds cannot stone because his hour has not yet come. And in every case, the escape is not dramatic, not fire from heaven, not an angel with a sword, not a miraculous paralysis of the attackers. He escapes. His hour has not yet come. He continues his mission. Before we go further, if this kind of close reading is what you come to YouTube for, subscribe to The Ancient Dispatch. Season 2, Episode 6. New episodes every week going deep into the books and lives of Scripture with history, original languages, and the dramatic weight that most Bible content doesn't stay with long enough to feel. And tell me in the comments, which attempt on Jesus' life has surprised you most so far? I read everyone. Now, Timahazim says nados. Donalirid. The attempts intensify. The conspiracy becomes organized. And the insider who knows where Jesus goes at night becomes the instrument the outside forces cannot find for themselves. After the raising of Lazarus, which we followed in Season 2, Episode 3, the Sanhedrin convenes. Many of the Jews who had come to see Mary and who had seen what Jesus did believed in him, but some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what he had done, and the chief priests and Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. They said, "What are we accomplishing? This man is performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation." It is a political calculation, and it is not irrational. A popular messianic movement in Judea was exactly the kind of thing Rome suppressed with overwhelming force. The Jewish leadership had watched Rome respond to other popular movements. They knew what happened. Their concern is real, even if their solution is terrible. And then Caiaphas speaks. He is the high priest that year. He says, "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." He means it as political pragmatism. John means it as prophecy. John records explicitly, he did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. And not only for that nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. The man who orders the death of Jesus as a political calculation to preserve the nation inadvertently articulates the theology of the atonement. One man dies for the people. The high priest says it. John says he doesn't know what he's saying, and both are true. From that day on, they plotted to take his life. John says Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the Jews. He withdrew to a region near the wilderness. He is not done. He is not in hiding in the permanent sense. He will come back to Jerusalem for the Passover. He knows he is coming back. He sets his face toward Jerusalem. He announces what will happen there to his disciples, but he is managing the timing. The plot has solidified. The danger is specific and organized. And he keeps the hour his own. And then John records one more thing about the Lazarus aftermath. The chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and believing in him. The man who was raised from the dead becomes a target. His resurrection is the evidence for Jesus, and the evidence must be silenced. Lazarus, who went into the tomb once and came out alive, is now scheduled to go in a second time, this time permanently by assassination. The threat that Lazarus poses is not political or military. It is simply that he is alive. He is walking around Jerusalem as the testimony that death is not final, and the people who need death to remain final are trying to end his testimony. Now watch what happens when the conspiracy moves from planning to action. The chief priests and teachers of the law are looking for some way to get rid of Jesus. Luke says this explicitly and adds, "For they were afraid of the people." They cannot arrest him publicly because the crowds are too favorable. They need to find him when the crowd is not around. They need someone who knows his movements, his private locations, his night habits. They need an insider. And then Satan enters Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. Luke's statement is blunt and stark. Satan enters Judas. John says the same in John 13. The devil had already prompted Judas to betray Jesus, and during supper he puts it in Judas's heart to betray him, whatever we make of the theology of demonic influence. And the New Testament does not oversimplify it. It does not say Judas had no choice or was purely a passive instrument. The text is clear that something beyond ordinary human calculation is driving the betrayal. Judas goes to the chief priests and officers of the temple guard and discusses how he might betray Jesus. They are delighted. They agree to give him money. Matthew gives the figure, 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave in Exodus 21:32, the amount the prophet Zechariah received as payment for his labor in Zechariah 11:12. The payment is not incidental. It is fulfillment of prophetic text, and it is insultingly small. Judas watches for an opportunity to hand Jesus over to them when no crowd was present. The crowd that has protected Jesus throughout his ministry, the crowd that made it impossible for the Sanhedrin to arrest him publicly, the crowd the chief priests were afraid of. Judas makes the crowd irrelevant by then agreeing to bypass it. The protection that came from public presence is dissolved by the insider who knows the private places. And Jesus knows it. At the Last Supper, in the upper room, eating the meal we followed in S2E Forge, Jesus says, "One of you will betray me." He knows who it is. He tells him, "What you are about to do quickly." He does not stop him. He says quickly, which is not permission, but recognition that the hour is approaching, and he is not going to prevent it. And then, just before the Gethsemane scene, John gives us the statement that is the theological center of everything. "The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. No one takes it. He lays it down. He has authority to lay it down and to take it up again." This is not said in Gethsemane, where the surrender is most visible. It is said before Gethsemane. In the middle of his ministry, before the conspiracy has fully formed, before Judas has made his deal, Jesus states the principle while the attempts are still ongoing. "You will not succeed because the timing is mine, and when the time comes, you will not take it because I will give it." The entire history of attempts on his life is the history of people trying to determine when Jesus dies, and the entire history of his escapes is the demonstration that they cannot. His hour had not yet come. His hour had not yet come until the night he says, "The hour has come." John chapter 18. After the Last Supper, after the foot washing, after the farewell discourse and the high priestly prayer, Jesus and his disciples go out across the Kidron Valley to a garden. John says Judas knew the place because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. The garden is the vulnerability, not a weakness in Jesus' divine protection, a deliberate choice about where to go on the night when the conspiracy is ready to move. He goes to the garden he always goes to. He goes to the place Judas knows. He does not hide. He does not change his pattern. He goes to the garden and he waits. Judas comes. He is guiding a detachment of soldiers and officials from the chief priests and Pharisees. John uses the word spera for the soldiers, a Roman military term that could mean a cohort of 600 men or a smaller detachment. However large the group, they are armed. They are carrying torches and lanterns, which means it is nighttime and they need light to search a garden. They expect to find someone hiding. Jesus steps forward to meet them. He does not hide. He walks toward the people who have come to arrest him and asks, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth. I am he." And they draw back and fall to the ground. This is the open loop resolved. The arrest party, armed, numerous, carrying weapons and torches, falls to the ground when Jesus says, "I am." The Greek is eimi, the divine name, the I am of the burning bush, the name Jesus used when he walked on the water and said, "Do not be afraid." The name that calmed the storm, the name that identified itself to Moses in Exodus 3. That name, spoken in a garden in the dark, temporarily incapacitates everyone in front of him. Pay attention to what Jesus does next. He does not walk away. He could. The arrest party is on the ground. He asks them again, "Who is it you want?" They say again, Jesus of Nazareth. He says again, I told you that I am he. And then, and this is the sentence most people miss in the Gethsemane arrest, he says, if you are looking for me, then let these men go. He negotiates. He negotiates the terms of his own arrest. The condition he places on his surrender is the release of his disciples. John adds, this happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those you gave me. He uses his own capture as the moment to secure the safety of the people around him. He is not taken. He arranges to be taken on terms that protect everyone else. Peter draws a sword and cuts off the ear of the high priest's servant, Malchus. John names him with the specificity of an eyewitness, and Jesus tells him to put the sword away. My Father, he says, could send 12 legions of angels to stop this, but then how would the scriptures be fulfilled? He could call 12 legions of angels. He demonstrates this possibility and then sets it aside. The power is present. He chooses not to use it. Now the hour has come. John 13:1. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. This is the pivot verse of John's Gospel, the moment the entire narrative has been building toward. Everything before this is before the hour. Everything after is the hour. John has been using the phrase his hour had not yet come as the explanation for every failed arrest. This verse is the explanation for why Gethsemane is different. The hour has come. Luke 9:51. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set his face toward Jerusalem. The Greek phrase, prosopon esterixen tu poruestai as Jerusalem means he fixed his face. He said it like flint. He aimed himself at Jerusalem with the deliberateness of someone who has made a decision and is not reconsidering it. He is not being carried toward Jerusalem by events. He is walking toward it, face set, hour coming. And then Pilate, the Roman governor, the man who has the legal authority to prevent the execution, who finds no basis for a charge, who says so 3 times, who offers to release Jesus as the Passover custom allows, who washes his hands, and who gives the order anyway. Jesus says to Pilate, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. Pilate has power over Jesus, the legal, political, military power of Roman authority, and Jesus tells him that power is derived. It comes from above. It is not ultimate. Even Pilate's authority over whether Jesus lives or dies is authority that has been given, not authority that is finally determinative. Josephus documents the cruelty and political cowardice of Pilate, a man known for provoking the Jewish population unnecessarily and then capitulating when pressed. Tacitus confirms the crucifixion under Pilate in the reign of Tiberius. The execution is historically certain, and the man who orders it tells Jesus he has power over his life and death. Jesus says, not really. Dietrich Bonhoeffer made a decision in 1939 that illuminates something about the Gethsemane choice. He was in America when the war began, safely outside Germany, invited to stay, given every reason to remain in safety. He wrote to Reinhold Niebuhr, I have made a mistake in coming to America. I must live through this difficult period in our national history with the Christian people of Germany. I will have no right to participate in the reconstruction of Christian life in Germany after the war, if I do not share the trials of this time with my people. He returned. He was arrested in 1943. He was executed in 1945. He chose the place of danger over the place of safety, not because he did not know what he was choosing, because the work required being present where the danger was. He resolutely set his face toward Germany. This is not a perfect analogy to Gethsemane. Bonhoeffer was not atoning for anyone's sins, and his death was not the enactment of a covenant oath sworn before the foundation of the world. But the structure of the choice is recognizable: full knowledge of the danger, full capability of avoiding it, and the deliberate decision to go toward it for the sake of others. The decision that is not resignation or fate, but intention. Jesus in the garden, after the arrest party falls and gets up, looks at the people who have come to take him and says, if you are looking for me, let these men go. He negotiates the release of his disciples. He secures the safety of the people around him. And then he is arrested. No one takes it from him. He lays it down. From the infants of Bethlehem to the garden outside Jerusalem. From a king afraid of a baby to an armed crowd falling to the ground when a man says his name. Every attempt, every escape, every phrase his hour had not yet come. And then, the night when the hour comes, and the phrase changes, and he stops escaping and starts arranging the terms. Here's what I want to leave you with. First, every escape before Gethsemane is marked by the same logic. His hour had not yet come. John uses the phrase explicitly twice and implies it in every failed arrest. Luke describes crowds that cannot lay hands on him. Matthew describes a flight to Egypt that preserves the child while other children die. The escapes are not survival. They are timing. Jesus is not running from his death or avoiding his death or hoping that the situation will improve enough that death will not be necessary. He is walking toward Jerusalem at the pace that the appointed hour requires. The enemies who are trying to kill him before the time are not more powerful than him. They are simply early, and he does not allow the early. Second, the most dangerous person in every attempt on Jesus' life is not the most powerful. Not Herod, who dies while Jesus is still in Egypt, outlived by the infant he tried to kill. Not the crowd at Nazareth, who he walks through. Not the Roman soldiers in Gethsemane, who fall down when he speaks his name. The threat that finally reaches him comes from Judas, the insider, the one who knows where Jesus goes at night, the one who can lead the arrest party to the right garden when it is time. The protection that public presence and popular support and supernatural authority provided against the powerful and hostile outside is dissolved by the trusted and familiar inside. The most effective threat is always the one that knows the private places. Third, and this is the one I want to stay with you. When the arrest party falls in Gethsemane, Jesus does not walk away. He gets them back to their feet, metaphorically, by asking the question a second time. He re-engages the arrest. He reoffers himself, and the condition he places on his surrender is the safety of the disciples around him. If you are looking for me, let these men go. He lays down his life in an act so intentional that he negotiates the specific terms of it, not taken, not overwhelmed, given. The keys of death and Hades, as we followed in the Season 2 opener, are in his hands, and in the garden he uses them, from the inside of the locked room to open the door. Which attempt on Jesus' life surprised you most? The hometown crowd at Nazareth who took him to the cliff edge, the arrest party in Gethsemane falling to the ground, or the moment he negotiates the terms of his own capture? Tell me in the comments. I want to know. No one takes his life from him. He lays it down. He has always been the one holding the keys. And in the garden, in the dark, with the arrest party on their feet and the hour finally come, he uses them to open the door from the inside.